stop now. You got to stop and listen to what I say. Stop and feel that you've been missing. Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and Ramon. We are recording this on February 26th of 2015. Now, I'm excited about this show tonight, Ramon. You know that this has been a topic that I've been into for, quite a few years now, that I've been looking into this subject. And every time I dip my toes back into that water, I always come away learning something new or having something more deep to contemplate for sure. And I have to say that this work has definitely helped me on my own path for sure. So what's going on over in Japan, Ramon?
Nothing much. A few earthquakes, but I haven't been feeling any. So I guess my region's been okay for now. But other than that, I got some interesting news that I found. And one I've heard about before, and that's the underwater pyramids found near Portugal. Has Portuguese Navy investigating. And it's off the coast, there's some islands that call Ponta Delgada and what's the other one? Sao Jorge and Pico Islands. It's off the coast of Portugal. Let me read this real quick. Portuguese news reporter, the discovery of a very large underwater pyramid first discovered by Diocleciano Silva between the islands of São Miguel and Teresia in Azores of Portugal. According to the claims, the structure is said to be perfectly squared and oriented by the cardinal points. Current estimates obtaining using GPS digital technology put the height at 60 meters with a base of 8,000 square meters. The Portuguese Hydrographic Institute of the Navy currently has the job of analyzing the data to determine whether or not the structure is man-made. So there you have it. Seems like we got these things on.
When was this discovered?
Let me see. 2012 was when it was discovered. I actually heard about it before, but I remember hearing a story of the Spaniards going to the Canary Islands and finding some people that kind of had Atlantean symbols, but the Spaniards just off them. This was before Columbus, maybe 1200 or something like that. So they just kind of off them and never got to find out about the history. Then here's another story that I find really cool. It's Flow Hive, honey on top directly from your beehive. So basically the way this works is they have it set up so the bees can produce their honey and you don't have to open it the traditional way and smoke the bees and put on the soup. You just turn the tap and honey flows right out. So wow. You never have to disturb the bees. And actually these people wanted to raise $70,000 and they end up raising $3,382,000. And you can actually buy it and put it on your land if you have nice sized land. They cost $600,000. They're out of Australia, so the shipping cost is a little expensive, as always. It drives me crazy. But yeah, you can just turn the knob and the honey flows right out. So really cool. And that's it for the news section for today.
All right. Well, we have got a really special treat for you guys tonight. We have got Byron Belitsos. I hope I pronounced that right, too. He's a multiple award-winning author and book publisher, and also an editor and educator. After founding Origin Press in 1996, he has worked with numerous leading authors, including Peter Russell, Ralph Metzner, Jim Marrs, Carl Tart, James O'Day, Timothy Wyllie, Anodea Judith, and Barbara Marx Hubbard. Byron is also known as a leading expert on the Urantia Book and has written, spoken, and given workshops widely on its teachings, including appearances on Gaiam TV, Coast to Coast AM with George Noory, and he's co-authored and published 4 previous books about the Urantia Revelation, most recently Healing a Broken World from 2013, and Adventures of Being Human in 2011. His forthcoming memoir about his 4 decades of adventures with the Revelation is entitled Romancing the Universe. Byron's also trained extensively in Zen and Tibetan Buddhist traditions. He's received a BA with honors in European Intellectual History from the University of Chicago University of Chicago in 1977, and was a Rhodes Scholarship nominee. His graduate studies have embraced history, literature, religious studies, and theology. He attended Naropa Institute, where he studied with poet Allen Ginsberg, at the University of California in Santa Cruz, where he studied cultural history with Hayden White. He also did graduate work at the California Institute of Integral Studies and the Graduate Theological Union at UC Berkeley. He is principal author of the acclaimed One World Democracy from 2005, which is based in part on political teachings of the Urantia Revelation. He also edited and published Discovery of Atlantis in 2004, a pioneering title that was noted worldwide and whose argument is derived from the teachings of the Urantia Book about the location of the Garden of Eden. This book's thesis was featured on the History Channel's Digging for the Truth series in 2006 and on Gaiam TV. He's also co-authored A Return to Healing with Dr. Len Saputo, which won the Nautilus Gold Award for Best Health Book of 2009. He's an inaugural member of Ken Wilber's Integral Institute and was a board member of the Democratic World Federalists and of 911truth.org. He lives in San Rafael, California, and he is now on the 100th Monkey Radio. Welcome to the show, Byron.
Great to be here. It's an honor. Thank you so much.
Oh, man, the honor is all ours. And as I said a few minutes ago, this book has really done some amazing things for me. I came across it, I guess it was in like 2006 or 2007, the first time I actually even heard of the Urantia Book. Mm-hmm. And when I started reading, it was like, oh my word, this is different. It was so different, but there was a resonance that was with what I was reading that I couldn't deny. I was saying it was that feeling you get when you know you found something that has importance. I don't know if you understand that or not, but yeah. But it was quite amazing for me, it personally. So
I'm so pleased to know that you found it on your own and recognized it, on your own.
Oh yeah,
that's rare. I mean, it's rare.
Yeah. Well, I'm an old school seeker. I've been on the path since the middle '80s, so it's definitely it's one of those things that when the student is ready, the teacher appears type thing.
Yeah.
So Byron, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got wrapped up in the Urantia Book.
Well, I won't say too much about myself because you read a long bio to start out. I got involved in the Urantia Book when I was in college, and I was like you, I was quite the seeker, and this was the mid '70s, and back then it was an intense search was going on all around, and the country was in turmoil. Nixon had just been impeached and resigned, so people were really in upheaval. And so when I came across the Urantia Book, I just, like you, I just felt this resonance and this these bells are ringing loudly. And I just was amazed. And it happened that I was living in Chicago at the time, and the headquarters of the Urantia people is in Chicago, so I was lucky I got to meet the core people, way back, and sort of grew up with all of these people who have been in this uphill battle to let the world know about the Urantia book. So meanwhile, I was trying to build a life and a career, and I was just a kid with this Urantia book, and I was naive about like you say, you figured it out and got a resonance with it, but I really was kind of amazed at how many times people rebuffed me when I presented it to them in the early days. But I've stuck with it. It's I've been through thousands of books since then that I've forgotten, but this book I just cannot put down.
So now the word Urantia, it's that's one of those that I'd never heard before. And I guess let's start this out with, is there any reference to that particular word Urantia in any other historical works?
No, it was a coined term coined by the celestial authors. There is a root word in Greek, the same word for the planet Uranus. It's a Uranos in Greek, and meaning the celestial heavens. And so they picked a pretty good word, and they kind of coined that. And by the way, the word Urantia is trademarked by the Urantia Foundation. I find that kind of an odd thing, but that is the case.
So is there another name that this planet is known by out in the greater cosmos?
Not that I know of. That's the name, and it's like Jupiter is Jupiter,
right?
Urantia is Urantia, and I don't think I've seen any evidence that in other channeled teachings that they are using that name. So that is an interesting thing. I've not seen any other references to it.
All right, so I suppose let's kind of through this show, guys, and for everybody out there listening, give you kind of an idea of what we're trying to do here with this show with Byron today. Is we're trying to lay down a little bit of groundwork here, some foundation on what the Urantia book is all about, and what kind of information is contained within it. So if we seem a little disjointed and things don't flow out of me, as in particular, quite as scattered as you're used to, then please bear with us. So the Urantia book, it's a book of revelation. And now when I say a book of revelation, I want to make sure everybody does not associate that word with the more famous book of revelation that's out there that comes out of the Bible. Now, actually, Byron, would you explain what this book of revelation means? What is meant by this being such a revelatory book?
It is a revelatory book. However, it's not to be seen as sort of a sacred fetish. Like this is everything and this is true and inerrant, and like sort of like how the fundamentalists see the Bible. It is actually a mix, because the mandate of the revelation of the revelators was and always is that they take the best human ideas and they sort of extract them, and they have ways of doing that, and then they build a revelation around that. In other words, it's the evolution of our ideas is very, very important, and they're doing this to upstep the revelation, the evolution of our ideas. So they actually literally take passages out of human books, and then they weave additional ideas where necessary to improve our take on that concept. So the definition of revelation here is unique. It is a co-creative definition of both human, the best of the humans, with an enhancement or an augmentation offered by the celestials that moves us ahead. So in other words, they're not going to tell you the things that you should know 10,000 years from now.
Right.
Because that would be too much. It would be overmuch. And we'd be like deer in the headlights. It would be too much light. So they kind of upgrade you, for the next 100 years, you might say.
Right. It's that whole when the student is ready, the teacher appears type thing. They don't give you more than you can handle or you can comprehend.
However, they will want to stretch you. And
right.
What we find with Urantia Book is it stretches people. And frankly, I think because the literacy rates are not what they used to be, say in the 70s, 80s, 90s, the literacy level of folks seems to be going backward in the level of stress and the distractions. So in a way, it's almost too much right now finding for people. So I would caution folks, if you get into this, is take it slow, take it easy, and pace yourself.
What about metaphors within the Urantia Book? Is it laden heavily with metaphors? I mean, when we compare it to other religious texts out there, some of them are damn near 100% metaphor.
Yeah, this is kind of like the opposite of that. It's like it's philosophical, it's factual, it tells history. It is not like some Gnostic texts that have far out symbols and metaphors and allegories. It is really not like that. It is modernistic, you might say. It's straightforward and not particularly poetic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's one thing that I really liked about it is that it was very explanatory. I mean, it explains the different aspects and the different parts. It's explained quite well. Before we go too deeply into the content of the book, would you share how this book came about in the first place?
Sure, happy to. It's a huge story, and there's starting to be a couple of historians who've taken this on, and they're coming to different conclusions. Because when it came through, it started coming through a particular, what they call the sleeping subject. The text itself didn't, but this guy was contacted, very similar to Edgar Cayce, very similar. And in fact, a whole book was written trying to prove that Edgar Cayce channeled it. But we have kind of proof now that it was not Edgar Cayce. But there was this person speaking, voices from off planet, and this is way back like as early as 1911. And the person the very small group of people who were listening and finding out about this was centered around someone named Dr. William Sadler, and based in Chicago. And he actually was not the sort of person into this thing. In fact, he was into debunking channeling, literally, and being a physician, and he was both a physician and a psychiatrist. And he actually studied with Freud for a short time. He was scientific minded, so he was trying to debunk it while it was happening, and he couldn't do it. And then at some point, the beings who were talking to them said, listen, we think that this is a pretty good situation, and we have a revelation ready for your planet. Would you like to be the receivers of it? So this was a group by this time of 6 people, and these 6 people are known as the Contact Commission. And beginning in the early 1920s, the chapters started appearing, and we call them papers. There's 196 papers and they're like chapter length, and they would appear. And the legend is that none of this was channeled through the sleeping subject, but rather the papers appeared miraculously. So this has not been verified, but the very strong anecdotal evidence is that it was literally these papers would show up handwritten. So they thought, oh well, maybe the sleeping subject got up in the middle of the night and wrote this chapter. But that was impossible. The guy was a businessman. There's no way he could have written this. And number two, there's no evidence he did it. Number three, they did handwriting analysis to prove it wasn't him. They brought in top experts. And these papers or chapters would appear, and they would have this, and then they would type them up, and they would study this. It was far over their heads, and so what the system was that they would interact through the sleeping subject, where they would ask questions to the celestials about the papers, about the content. And they'd say, well, we don't understand this. Can you explain this? Can you explain that? Can you amplify this? And so then they would materialize a new edition of the chapter.
Wow.
And they did that several times with each one. So it took a really long time. It took over 20 years to do that. And very early on, they were directed by the celestials to create a group of readers, and this group is known as the Forum. And the Forum is is in Chicago. So this guy Sadler, who had a lot of patience and had a lot of students, so he invited this smartest people to be in the Forum. And they weren't all just sort of intellectual types. They were middle class people and even some blue collar people who were interested and bright. And they would collect questions on each. They would read the paper and then submit questions, and then the celestials would say, okay, here's a new version of that chapter. So again, it's co-creative. It's human and divine working together. So by the middle of World War II, they had assembled everything. With one exception, the last part of the book, known as the Life and Teachings of Jesus. There are 4 parts, and the 4th part is the longest part. This 700-plus page biography of Jesus appeared all at once. So imagine that. And that was in 1934, I think. That appeared all at once, and that was a done deal. But they kept revising the earlier papers. So it's one of the most, it's really truly the most remarkable story of transmission ever. Maybe comparable is the reception of the Quran. The Quran was sort of recited to Muhammad for 20 years. All those surahs, those passages, it took 20 years.
Right.
So this is the only thing comparable to that, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I've never really understood. For example, there's, I can't remember the name of this other book, but anyway, there's been other religious texts put out where people talk to the divine and this is written down. But you always have like either the Christians or the Jewish or the different religions would always say, this, that must be a lie and those people must be crazy. But yet their whole belief system is based on pretty much this similar thing where you don't know who really wrote this, and it was said that, it was by God kind of thing. But yet you'll deny somebody else saying the same thing.
Right. Yeah, that's the tendency, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got the tendency to not believe anything that's happening today. As far as our religions are concerned, but we'll geez, we'll put 100% faith in something that purportedly happened 2,000 years ago. Yeah, it's a crazy world.
Yeah, no, it is, but a lot of it is politics. In other words, once you get a very strong thing like the Catholic Church, then you can, you got money and power, and you can sort of compel young people to follow along and read the Bible, go to Sunday school. You get these institutions, and some like the Urantia Book or Course in Miracles. We don't have institutions to support it. And, you can barely find out about it, and, it's just the way it is. I mean, but someday, the truth will win out.
Right. Well, we've got so many people out there on the planet today that are really looking for answers. I mean, and really looking. I mean, there's a difference. There's a lot of people that say, yes, I'm a seeker. I'm looking for truth. I'm trying to understand spirituality, trying to understand who and what I am, but there's a lot of just lip service in so many quarters but we've definitely noted, and I've definitely noted a tremendous growth in what I consider as truth seekers, those who will suspend their doubt enough to at least put the information into their bag for consideration, and they don't just flat out disregard something because it doesn't fit into their own personal paradigm. Yeah,
I think there's a very strong minority of seekers, like you say, that are really the leaders of the future, and they're motivated and they're humanly motivated. But I also think that there are spiritual influences flowing into the planet now that are much stronger than ever, and we can get to this as there's a turning point in the mid-'80s, according to the Urantia Revelators, that was reached, which was the quarantine of Urantia. It was a quarantined planet. That's a big, long story, and it says that was began to be lifted in the 80s, and increasingly we are now sort of part of the large, greater universe, whereas we were kind of fenced off, and we did not have the same energies coming into the planet, positive energies. So that explains a lot of why people are seeking, because they're being given energetically, they're being given more of a boost to be seekers. Yeah.
Right. Well, definitely. Yeah. Go ahead, Ramon.
No, I was just gonna say that talking about the quarantine and how it seems to come up where it's almost like these 12 different planets or these 12 different alien groups, and we're like always the 13th. Like they were waiting for us to catch up to connect that. Is there anywhere where they mention something like that in the Urantia?
Would you be so kind so you're talking about...
for example, like in Japanese Buddhism, they have, here in Japan, they have these, when you go into this temple, they have these 12 different gods. And in the middle is the 13th god, but it's a mirror.
Oh, yeah.
So when you look, you're looking at yourself.
Right.
And then if you go to Washington, D.C., there's these 12 women on the ceiling of the White House, and you see there's 12 women, and then supposedly like this is supposed to be the 13th. So it's always like these 12 different races, and the human, the Earth human always makes the 13th.
Yeah, there's nothing in particular about the number 13 or 12, nor is there really isn't any number symbolism in the Urantia book. However, there is this very important idea, which is that, as you know, in Christianity, there's the three gods, right? So the Trinity. And, but the permutations of three are 7. And so there's a very strong 7. There's actually 7 deities sort of beyond the three, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, right? And then they break out into 7 combinations. So there is that, but it's not like symbolism. It's a reality of 7. They call them master spirits, the 7 master spirits. And by the way, there are 7 great sectors of the universe. And within those sectors are galaxy clusters. So there's 7 great galaxy clusters that are the inhabited galaxies. And then beyond the inhabited galaxies are billions of uninhabited galaxies. But anyway, I'm digressing a little bit, so.
Oh, no worries, no worries. So within most of the world religions, there's a hierarchy that has been laid out. They all tell you we'll take Christianity, for example. We have the different types of angels, and then we have Jesus, and then the Father above him. There's I don't even know how many different types of angels. What are there? It was probably 7 different types of angels, maybe?
In the Bible, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so I guess I'm trying to do a comparative thing. How does that mirror over into the way the hierarchy is set up within the Urantia book?
The sort of the hierarchy that you get in these ancient religions, Christianity and Hindu, and Islam and all that. I mean, it's ancient and it's primitive compared to the Urantia Revelation. But it is centered on the Creator, Father, Mother. Now, in the Urantia book, they use the term Father most of the time, but they really mean it's infinitely beyond gender. It's not truly, like your dad.
Right.
But on the other hand, it is like your dad if your dad was a loving being who was a blessing to be around. But this is the Father of all, the Mother of all, who is the Creator. But there are creators at local levels too. So you got a universe of hundreds of billions of galaxies, right? So this is the Creator of all of that. But as I mentioned, there are 7 big sectors of inhabited galaxies. So they have what they call creator sons. And Jesus is one of those. And so he and his consort, who is the divine feminine, known as Mother Spirit, the 2 of them are sort of this divine couple who are the creator beings for the local universe. So our local universe is, the local sector of our Milky Way galaxy. And there are some that think that this refers to the entire galaxy. So that under that view, Jesus is literally the creator of our galaxy. And it depends on how you read the Urantia book. Right. In any case, that's the sort of, there's a hierarchy. There's God the Father at the center of all things, who's infinite love and all blessing and compassionate, and then his subsidiary creator Jesus. But the Urantia book reveals to us that there is a female Jesus as well. There's a pair. It's sort of Christ male and Christ female. So that's that. And then they are creators of the local angels, and but in the higher heavens, so to speak, in the higher worlds, there are angels who are angels of the entire universe, you might say. And that hierarchy is vast, because the universe is vast. But even in the local universe, which, by the way, has this weird name, Nebadon is the name of the local universe, and it has up to 10 million inhabited planets. And right now it's a little over 6 million inhabited planets. So it has its own set of angels, all kinds of angels. So that's kind of the rough hierarchy in the Urantia book.
Right. Is Nebadon one of the newer universes?
It's relatively new. Yeah, that is the case, but it's still much older than you might think. It's 400 billion years old.
Yeah, I definitely, definitely know that this place is much older than anybody here, from the science community have ever dreamt, anyways.
Yeah, no, I mean, people laugh, 15 billion years for the Big Bang. It's just the Urantia book it shows the universe is much bigger than that, and much, much, much older than that. It's close to 1 trillion years old. But by the way, there is a kind of a central universe, just like our galaxy has a center. Well, the universe has a center, and that center you can't see it; it's outside of space and time. But it's always been there. It was never created. It's been there from eternity, and that by itself is the largest body of things in the universe. So it's. The dimensions are really, really, really large in the Urantia book.
Right. So let's step this hierarchy thing down a little bit more into the human level here. Now we have a lot of energies and entities and beings that are working on our behalf behind the scenes on quite a few different levels, and I want to go all the way down to the personal level here, and what's called the thought adjuster within the Urantia book. And this part of the Urantia work is the first part that really just rang a big bell for me, and started to really make the book really make a lot of sense for me when I had started looking at my own life and how I have had these, what I term miracles in my life, and angelic communications and encounters, that the Urantia, the way the Urantia explains how all this stuff is working just resonated so strongly, and it actually synced up with my own personal experience so well. So can we start at the thought adjusters, and would you explain what a thought adjuster is and what its purpose is?
Yeah, sure, Tom. Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a weird term. It's almost like a technical term, but it really means, what Jesus referred to as the kingdom of God is within you, and he really meant God is within you. And so it is literally, not figuratively, literally, not a symbol, but literally the highest God the Father fragments himself so that a pure part of deity, of God, pure God is within us in our heart or mind or both. It's miraculous. And, this was intuited in Buddhism as the Buddha nature, and in Hinduism as the Atman, kind of the same idea. And, it's the thing that, makes our life a miracle, because, we have not just this consciousness of this entity that is, infinitely conscious within us, but it also has an energetic quality that gives us a divine flavor to our highest experience. And so when we feel spiritually uplifted, it's often, almost always, the influence of this entity called the thought adjuster, which, primarily you can think of it as acting in our minds and adjusting our thoughts. And I never could. It took me a long time to sort of like, what? This thing is adjusting my thoughts, but but now it really makes sense to me, because, when you're younger, your thoughts are kind of all over the place, but as you age, you can feel that your thoughts are kind of under control, and there's like this something in you that's making you wiser and smarter, and that is much of that is the work of this very patient entity that really is God's direct connection to you.
Now, do you think that this entity, this thought adjuster, do they possess For lack of a better term, a personality?
Actually, no, it's a great question. So we think of God as personal in the Urantia Book, and also as impersonal. God is both impersonal in the sense of like nature itself. The universe, is not impersonal in a sense, but the Creator God is personal in that that God knows that He exists. So only a person can have self-awareness. And the thought adjuster has self-awareness, but it is not technically a person. So it's not like we have a little person walking around like a mini me that's in there. But what it is seeking is to unite with your person, your personality. So the goal of our spiritual lives is to really unite or even fuse with this God fragment and become one with it. And when you do that, you're a Buddha. You have become enlightened. And so you can think of it as, they call it pre-personal. It's the pre-personal thought adjuster. And it has a will, and it represents the will of God, but it is subordinate to your will. In other words, we are loved so much that, being kind of crazy creatures running around here, God gives us freedom and free will, and even God submits himself to our free will and is not going to, is not going to force himself on us, so to speak. He's going to wait till we choose to be one with him and to listen to his voice within us.
I've recently had an experience that I've been trying to integrate within my own life now and try to understand what actually happened. I had a voice come through me, and it's been called channeling, all sorts of different things by a lot of different people, possession, by some quarters. But I actually, and I've been able to tap into that divine aspect on many occasions where I call it getting plugged in, where things just flow through me. Sometimes to the extent where when I'm done, I have no idea what I just said, type thing. But I had an experience recently where it was very persistent and insistent that it be allowed to speak, and I argued and battled with it for a few minutes before I finally relented and let it come through, and some really profound stuff came through. I kind of sensed, I termed it the universal voice. That's the only word I could come up with that fit for it. So I'm kind of assuming that this was, I feel that this was what we are calling a thought adjuster from the Urantia book.
Well, Tom, that's a really great event. So congratulations. It seems likely it's a thought adjuster, but there are other agencies that that are given to us that can speak to us, such as angelic beings. So it might have been that, but it doesn't really matter because all of those influences act as one. They're all perfectly coordinated. So, but yeah, the thought adjuster, anything that's of a higher spiritual nature like that, the thought adjuster is involved to some extent, or it may be purely the thought adjuster. Which, when that happens, that's momentous. So, congratulations.
Yeah. Well, the reason I was kind of going down this line of questioning is because I'm trying to look for some confirmation for myself and understanding what exactly it was, because I did not sense a personality with it. And that's what kind of makes me lean towards, that pure thought adjuster influence there versus angelic. He's like, would the angelic, would that the angelic realm, now that actually, the angels have a distinct singular personality, correct?
Correct, and they have names, and so yes, if you're sensitive, you can feel their energy signature, and which has a quality of personhood and personality. So if you did not feel that, then yeah, it sounds like it's very likely your thought adjuster spoke with you.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. Definitely. I'd kind of like to, well, we've got another 15 minutes here, or 10 minutes here for this first segment. And would you kind of go through the 4 parts of the book real quick for us and explain what each part is about?
Sure, happy to do it. They're huge parts, and I'll give a very rough summary. So the first part is, it's a real top-down kind of text. So the first part is giving you the really, really big picture on the universe. And the things I mentioned earlier about that there is a central universe is revealed in the first part, and then what goes on there, and the residential members of the central universe, who are all eternal, almost all, not all, but mainly eternal beings, right? So it explains that, and then it descends from there. So in part 1, you get that overview, and in part 1 you get sort of the theology of the text, which I gave just the very roughest overview of a Trinitarian, and then the seven deities I mentioned, but there's so much more to it. So then part 2 is the story of our local universe. So part 1 is the what they call the master universe, and the inhabited parts and the non-inhabited parts. That's part 1. So part 2, now that you know about the wide scope of things, then they come down to the level of the local universe, which is an evolved universe. So in other words, we're now in space and time. So out here in space and time come Christ and his consort, Mother Spirit. And they are sent from the center universe. And so they literally kind of cordon off a little section, and they say, well, this is where we're going to have our children live. So they're actually creating a family. So part 2 is sort of the story of the family of the local universe, which starts from, basically from scratch in space, out in space, and they literally work with these subordinate beings, and they create not just the stars that throw off the planets, but they create the higher worlds, right? The worlds that are outside of third dimension. They create all of that, and they populate those higher worlds with higher beings. So that's the story of the second part of the book. And then the third part is the history of Urantia. It's the history of our planet. And this is a heck of a history. It's the entire history from the beginning of how planet Earth evolved out of the sun, how it cooled, and how they implanted life. They implanted life here with single-cell entities were planted here once we had an ocean. And a couple hundred pages about how life evolved. It's like reading Darwin. And they literally tell you how all the species evolved, and then how we got to the current history and so what I call prehistory, the early times of the planet, and the story of the Lucifer rebellion, which we haven't talked about. And but it's very important. It's what makes the planet very unusual is it had an angelic rebellion. And it's like 1 in a million planets have that. So that's all in part 3. And then part 4, as I mentioned, is life and teachings of Jesus. So like in the Bible, you've got, the Gospel of Mark or the Gospel of John. These are like 20-page stories. Well, the Urantia book is 700 pages.
Right.
And so you got that in part 4. And if you're going to read anything, definitely read part 4.
Now, this is still the Urantia book, and the work around Urantia is a continually evolving work, correct?
Yeah, the text is not evolving per se, but beginning after the what I mentioned earlier, when the adjudication, they and lifted the quarantine on the planet, and that was the beginning of the end for the Lucifer, Satan, and all the bad guys that were infecting our history. So once they did that, then the celestial beings involved with the Urantia Revelation began to channel through into Urantia groups. And so we had a really unusual situation by the mid-90s where we had as many as 100 groups that were receiving new revelations. And that material is very controversial. It's turned out to be over 20,000 pages, really long, much more than that, and over 5,000 sessions with these beings. Many of them are actual authors of the Urantia Book. And that continues till today. So there's another body of work that is online. It's and I'm kind of the main publisher of that. I publish books of that that you can find. So there's another body. So it's a pretty big bunch of things to take in.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing that I really like about this whole work is that there seems to that word dogma I cannot attach to it, which is really refreshing to me, because within practically every other religion out there, dogma it's right at its core and foundation of the organization that is proposing and sharing their religion. But within the Urantia Book, I have not found that. So that within itself is quite refreshing. So,
well, you can say it has doctrines, you might say.
Right.
Dogmas are always humanly created.
Right.
I was going to say, give it time, about 200 years. And
yeah, exactly right.
Somebody who has no idea will create it.
Yeah. So, Byron, in the last couple of minutes before we wrap up this first hour, what are you currently working on, and what can we look forward to seeing from you?
Jerry Lane, who you've interviewed, and I just completed his book, the second in the Adventure of Being Human series. And in this book, the Mother Spirit, the consort of Christ, is speaking and channeled through Jerry. So working on that, and I'm working, as you mentioned, on my own book called Romancing the Universe. And yeah, that's keeping me busy.
Good stuff. And where can people pick up your books at, and your website, please?
Yeah, it's evolving-souls.org. So there's a dash in there. Evolving and then souls, SOULS.org, and you can see all our stuff there, and all of our books are on Amazon and everywhere else.
Good stuff. All right. Well, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up here for the first hour, and in the next hour, I want to dig into the Lucifer Rebellion, Planet Earth, or Urantia. Old habits are hard to break. But I'd like to dig into that and, kind of look at our current situation and some of the things that led up to what got us here and the path out of it, which is actually quite dynamic. So,
well, good. Look forward.
All right. So I want to thank everybody for listening to this first hour. And if you are out there listening on one of the other media formats, the iTunes, the Vimos, the YouTubes, wherever this lands, please pop on over to www.the100thmonkeyradio.com, where you can listen to the second hour and so many other hundreds of hours of interviews that are on that website. Okay, condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you carry.
Namaste, my friends.
Stop now, you got to stop and listen to what I say. Stop and feel that you've been missing along the way. Put aside your petty fight, serve your dignity. You've got to show the heart that you've been hiding and set it free. There's just one door, the world gone wrong. message trying to reach you. Excuse yourself and pick up the call. You gotta pick up the call. It came the same way the very next day. The words they just kept on coming through. Hard to conceive if you believe me. This is what you really want to do. You got to tune into your inner being. Now let it be. You got to activate your inner vision. Now let it see. Cast out the doubt, the mindless chatter. Now let it go. It's time to tap into the heart of the matter. 'Cause don't you know there's just one door in a world gone wrong. We all need loving. And if the cure for one is the cure for all, step right up and don't be shy. Excuse yourself and pick up the call. Pick up the call. You gotta pick up the call. Pick up the call. It's really all quite simple in the end. You got to tune into your inner being. Now let it be. You got to activate your inner vision. Now let it see. Cast out the doubt, the mindless chatter. Now let it go. It's time to tap into the heart of the matter. 'Cause don't you know there's just one cure in the world gone wrong. And don't be shy, got to look yourself right in the eye. There's a magic moment trying to meet you, an urgent message trying to reach you. The phone is ringing off the wall, so pick up the call. You gotta pick up the call.